The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stretched high above the gathered representatives. Floating platforms carried delegates from 12 different worlds, each one representing millions of years of civilization. The air hummed with translation devices, turning alien words into sounds that every species could understand. Elder Thokvar moved slowly to the center speaker's platform. His ancient form looked fragile, but his eyes held the wisdom of 50 million years. The Vortak had seen empires rise and fall like waves on a beach. When he spoke, the entire galaxy listened. "Friends of the Council," Thokvar began, his voice carrying across the vast chamber, "I come before you today with a warning from the deep past." Commander Velthos of the Kryn Empire shifted in his seat. The Kryn were warriors, proud of their strength and military power. They had conquered half their galaxy armed through pure force. Velthos had little patience for old stories and ancient fears. "Speak your piece, Elder," called out Counselor Nethys from the hegemony platform. "But make it quick. We have real business to discuss today." Thokvar's weathered hands touched a small device. Suddenly the air above them filled with images. Ancient ruins appeared, older than any known civilization. Strange symbols covered broken walls and fallen towers. "These ruins were found on the edge of known space," Thokvar said. "They are older than even my people. But we learned to read their language, and in these writings we found a warning." The symbols began to glow and change, forming words that everyone could read. "When the young species of the third spiral emerges among the stars, beware. They who know no surrender will reshape the very fabric of galactic order." Laughter echoed from several platforms. Commander Velthos shook his head with amusement. "Elder, with respect, this sounds like children's stories. The third spiral arm is nothing but empty space and primitive worlds." "There is one world there," Thokvar said quietly. "A small blue planet. Its people call it Earth." More laughter filled the chamber. The Earth humans had just learned to travel between stars. Their ships were crude and slow. Their weapons were simple. Most council members saw them as barely more than clever animals. "Those primitives?" Velthos stood up, his armor clanking. "Elder, I've seen their ships. Slow metal boxes with chemical rockets. They couldn't threaten a cargo transport, much less the galactic order." But Thokvar did not smile. "The warning does not speak of their ships or weapons. It speaks of something else. Something we may not understand until it is too late." Far across the galaxy, Dr. Kang Minho stood at the window of Earth's first starship, the Teguk. Space stretched endlessly before them, filled with stars that humans had only dreamed of visiting. Behind him, his team prepared for humanity's first meeting with alien civilizations. Captain Park Ji-won checked the ship's systems one more time. She was young for a starship captain, but Earth's space program moved fast. They had to. The aliens had made it clear that this meeting would decide humanity's future among the stars. "Status report," Park said, her voice calm despite the moment's importance. "All systems green," replied Chief Engineer Lee Hana from her station. "Fusion drive is running smooth. We'll reach Nexus Prime in 6 hours. Communications Officer Kim Soon-ho looked up from his instruments. "I'm picking up traffic from the station. Hundreds of different signals. It's incredible, Captain. So many different species all talking at once." Dr. Kang Minho turned from the window. As Earth's chief diplomat, he would speak for all of humanity today. The weight of that responsibility felt heavy on his shoulders. "Remember our mission," he told the crew. "We're here to show them that humans are ready to join the galactic community. We want to be partners, not subjects." Back in the council chamber, the debate about the ancient warning continued. Most delegates had stopped paying attention. To them, it was just another piece of Vorthak superstition. The old species were always finding doom and gloom in ancient texts. Admiral Kethmar of the hegemony brought up a more practical matter. "The Earth humans have requested full membership in the council. I suggest we grant them observer status instead. Let them watch and learn how real civilizations operate." "Agreed," said Velthos. "Observer status is generous for such a young species. They should be grateful for the chance to see how their betters govern." The vote was quick and unanimous. Humanity would be allowed to watch council meetings but could not vote or speak unless asked. Their homeworld would be classified as Sector 7G, Classification Primitive Developing World. Elder Thokvar watched the vote with sad eyes. He had tried to warn them, but they would not listen. Perhaps they could not listen. The great powers of the galaxy had ruled for so long that they could not imagine anything changing. When the Taeguk docked at Nexus Prime, Dr. Kang Minho felt his breath catch. The station was massive beyond imagination. Ships from dozens of worlds moved through its bays like insects around a hive. Each vessel was more advanced than anything Earth had ever built. The human delegation walked through corridors filled with aliens of every shape and size. Some looked almost human. Others were so strange that Minho's mind struggled to understand what he was seeing. All of them stared at the humans with curiosity or amusement, like adults watching children play dress-up. The council chamber doors opened with a sound like thunder. Minho led his team inside, trying to project confidence he didn't feel. Around them, the greatest powers in the galaxy looked down from their floating platforms. "Representatives of Earth," announced Councillor Nethys, "you have been granted observer status in this council. You may watch our proceedings and learn from them. Speak only when spoken to." Captain Park Ji-won's hands clenched into fists at her sides. She had expected this, but it still hurt. Humanity was being treated like children who should be grateful for any attention at all. Dr. Kang Minho bowed politely. "We thank the Council for this opportunity," he said, his voice steady. "We hope to prove that humanity deserves a place among the stars." "Perhaps," said Velthos with a dismissive wave. "If you prove yourselves useful, you may earn greater privileges in time. But that will take centuries, if it happens at all." The human delegation took their assigned seats in a small observation gallery. From there, they watched as the council discussed trade routes, territorial disputes, and military operations. They were spectators to their own fate. Elder Thokvar caught Dr. Kang Minho's eye across the chamber. The ancient alien nodded slightly, as if he understood something the others did not. In that moment, Minho felt a strange connection to the wise old being who seemed to see more than the others. As the session ended, Captain Park Ji-won whispered to her team, "They think we're harmless pets. They have no idea what humans are capable of when we're pushed." Dr. Kang Minho nodded grimly. He had seen the casual dismissal in their eyes, the assumption that humanity would always remain grateful for scraps from their table. But he also remembered the words from his history classes. Never mistake human kindness for human weakness. The ancient warning echoed in Elder Thokvar's mind as he watched the human delegation leave. They who know no surrender will reshape the very fabric of galactic order. The council had been warned. But warnings, Thokvar knew, were only useful to those wise enough to listen. 3 years had passed since humanity's first meeting with the Galactic Council. In that time, humans had spread to 17 small colonies along the galaxy's outer edge. The council watched these settlements with mild interest, like scientists observing an ant farm. Dr. Choi Youngie worked late in her laboratory on New Sol Colony, studying genetic samples from humans and aliens alike. What she had discovered would have shocked the council if they had bothered to pay attention. But to them, humans were just another useful species to be managed and controlled. The lab's door chimed, and her assistant entered carrying more test results. "Doctor, the comparative analysis is complete," he said, setting down the data tablets. "The results are unusual." Youngie looked at the numbers and felt her breath catch. Human genetic diversity was incredible compared to other species. While aliens had spent millions of years becoming specialized for their homeworlds, humans had remained adaptable. They could survive in environments that would kill most other species. "Look at this," she told her assistant, pointing to the psychological profiles. "Every other species shows clear behavioral patterns, predictable responses to stress, limited problem-solving approaches. But humans, the data showed something remarkable. Humans refused to accept limitations the way other species did. When faced with impossible problems, they found new solutions. When told something couldn't be done, they did it anyway. It was as if the concept of surrender simply didn't exist in their minds. Meanwhile, on the mining platform Prosperity Station, conditions were getting worse every day. The Zirak Confederacy had taken control of the Outer Rim colony 6 months ago. They claimed it was for economic stability, but everyone knew the truth. The Zirak wanted cheap labor, and humans worked harder than any other species. Engineer Yoon Jae-hyun wiped sweat from his forehead as he finished his 16-hour shift in the deep mines. Around him, other human workers looked exhausted and angry. The Zirak overseers carried shock sticks and used them freely on anyone who moved too slowly. "This isn't right," whispered Park Min-jae, a young miner from Earth. "We're not slaves. We have rights, right?" laughed Yoon Jae-hyun bitterly. The council voted on our rights. Observer status, remember? We get to watch while others decide our fate. That night, Yoon Jae-hyun couldn't sleep. He thought about his family back on Earth, about the dreams they had shared when humanity first reached the stars. They had imagined partnership and friendship with alien civilizations. Instead, they found masters who saw them as useful animals. Back on Earth, the Council's response to human complaints was swift and dismissive. Dr. Kang Minho stood before a communication screen, speaking to Counselor Nethys across the light years. "Counselor, we've received reports of forced labor and abuse in the Outer Rim," Minho said carefully. "Our people are being treated as slaves." Nethys barely looked up from his other work. "The Zirak Confederacy has sovereign rights in their territory. If your people don't like the working conditions, they're free to leave." "Leave and go where?" Minho asked. "You've restricted human travel to approved trade routes. The Zirak control all the stations in that sector. Then perhaps your people should have thought about that before accepting employment there," Nethys replied with no emotion. "The Council cannot interfere with legitimate business arrangements." Captain Park Ji-won watched the conversation from behind Minho. Her jaw tightened with anger. She had spent 3 years watching the Council treat humanity like children, who should be grateful for any attention at all. Now they were abandoning humans to slavery and calling it legitimate business. On Prosperity Station, Yoon Jae-hyun had made a decision. He gathered 20 other human workers in the abandoned storage bay after their shift. In the dim light, their faces showed exhaustion and determination in equal measure. "They think we'll just accept this," he said quietly. "The Zirak believe humans are weak because we follow their rules. The Council believes we're helpless because we don't fight back. They're all about to learn something new about humans." The plan was simple and dangerous. Yoon Jae-hyun had studied the station's layout during his months of forced labor. He knew where the Zirak kept their weapons, where they slept, and how their security systems worked. Most importantly, he knew something the Zirak didn't understand about human psychology. "We don't fight like them," he explained to his team. "They expect big battles with lots of noise and destruction. But humans learn different kinds of warfare on Earth. We learn to be quiet, fast, and smart." 3 days later, the uprising began. It started in the deepest mine shafts where human workers suddenly disappeared from their posts. Zirak overseers went to investigate and found empty tunnels. The humans had vanished like ghosts. By the time the Zirak realized what was happening, it was too late. Human workers had taken control of the station's power grid, communication systems, and weapon storage. They moved through the corridors like shadows, using maintenance tunnels and service shafts the Zirak had forgotten existed. The Zirak had never seen warfare like this. Their military training focused on big ships and direct confrontation. They didn't know how to fight an enemy that refused to stand still and fight fairly. Every time they thought they had cornered the humans, their targets melted away into the station's hidden spaces. Within 12 hours, Prosperity Station was under human control. The Zirak overseers found themselves locked in their own detention cells, confused and frightened by their impossible defeat. But Yoon Jae-hyun's team didn't stop there. Over the next week, they hit 2 more Zirak facilities using the same ghost-like tactics. Each victory spread the word to other human workers. They didn't have to accept slavery. They could fight back. The news reached the Council like a slap in the face. Commander Veltho stood before the emergency session, his armor gleaming with anger. "These humans are terrorists," he declared. "They attack legitimate facilities, use illegal warfare tactics, and refuse to fight honorably. The Council must act immediately." Admiral Kethmar nodded agreement. "My intelligence reports show the humans used improvised weapons and guerrilla tactics. Such methods are barbaric and uncivilized. No proper species fights that way." Elder Thakvar listened to their complaints with growing concern. The other council members were making the same mistake their ancestors had warned against. They were judging humans by their own standards and finding them wanting. "Perhaps," Thakvar said carefully, "we should ask why the humans felt the need to fight at all. Because they're primitives who don't understand their place." Velthos shot back. "They need to learn respect for proper authority." The Council's solution was swift and harsh. They voted to impose trade sanctions on Earth and restrict all human movement to their home system. No more colonies, no more trade, no more expansion. Humanity would be contained until they learned proper behavior. Captain Oh Seung-jin received the ultimatum in his office at Earth Defense Command. He read it twice, then called his senior staff. Around the conference table, Earth's military leaders listened as he read the Council's demands. "They want us to withdraw from all Outer Rim colonies," he said. "They want us to return all captured Xerac property. They want us to punish the humans who participated in what they call terrorist activities, and they want a formal apology from Earth's government." The room fell silent. These were professional soldiers who had sworn to protect humanity. The idea of abandoning their people to slavery and apologizing for defending themselves was unthinkable. "What's our response?" asked Colonel Jin Soo-young, Earth's Special Operations Commander. Captain Oh Seung-jin stood up slowly. He thought about the young miners on Prosperity Station, about the families torn apart by forced labor, about the casual dismissal in the Council's eyes when they looked at humans. "Our response is simple," he said. "We respectfully decline their restrictions." The message went out on all Council communication channels, broadcast to every alien government and military command. Earth's response was polite, formal, and absolutely final. "The Earth government thanks the Galactic Council for their concern, but we respectfully decline to accept restrictions on human movement or activity. Our people have the right to defend themselves against slavery and abuse." When the message reached the Council chamber, the reaction was immediate and explosive. No species had ever simply refused Council orders. "The very idea was unthinkable, impossible," shouted Velthos. "They cannot simply say no." "They just did," Elder Thakvar observed quietly. Admiral Kethamar's face darkened with anger. "Then we must teach them the consequences of defying the Council. They need to learn that primitive species cannot challenge their betters." The vote for military action was swift and unanimous, with only Elder Thakvar abstaining. A peacekeeping force would be sent to Earth to enforce Council authority. The humans would learn their place one way or another. Back on Earth, Dr. Choi Younge finished her research and sent her findings to the government. Her data showed something the Council had missed in their arrogance. Humans weren't just physically and mentally different from other species. They were psychologically unique in one crucial way. Every other species in the galaxy had a surrender reflex. When faced with overwhelming odds, they would submit to superior force. It was a survival mechanism that had kept them alive for millions of... The Council's peacekeeping force assembled at Staging Base Alpha, a massive military station 3 light-years from Earth. Admiral Kethmar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching 200 warships prepare for what he expected to be a quick lesson in galactic authority. Each ship in the fleet represented the pinnacle of alien military technology. Energy shields that could deflect asteroid impacts, weapons that could crack planets, and sensors that could track a single ship across an entire star system. Against Earth's primitive fleet, it should have been like using a hammer to crush an insect. "Status report," Kethmar demanded from his tactical officer. "All ships ready, Admiral. Our scouts report the human fleet consists of 30 vessels, mostly converted cargo ships and mining platforms. They appear to be using chemical rockets and primitive nuclear weapons." Kethmar almost smiled. 30 ships against 200, chemical rockets against plasma drives, nuclear weapons against reality-bending energy beams. "It would be over in minutes. Set course for Earth," he ordered. "Let's teach these primitives the price of defying the Council." At Earth Defense Command, Admiral Yu Min-seo watched the approaching alien fleet on her tactical display. The odds were impossible by any reasonable calculation. Earth's ships were hastily converted civilian vessels with improvised weapons and armor. Her crews were brave but inexperienced in space combat. But Admiral Yu had studied every piece of alien technology Earth had encountered. She had read every report from the Outer Rim colonies. And she had learned something important about the galaxy's military powers. They were predictable. "All ships, this is Admiral Yu," she broadcast to the human fleet. "Remember your training. They think they know how we'll fight. They're wrong." Captain Lee Dongwan commanded the converted freighter New Busan. His ship had started life carrying grain between Earth's colonies. Now it bristled with missile launchers and railguns built by Earth's finest engineers. It wasn't pretty, but it was fast and maneuverable. "Approaching the outer sensor perimeter," his navigator reported. "Enemy fleet is maintaining standard formation. No deviation from textbook tactics are perfect," Lee replied. "Just like the Admiral predicted. They fight like they're still in military academy." The alien ships moved in perfect formation, maintaining optimal distances for mutual support and coordinated fire. It was textbook fleet tactics refined over millions of years of galactic warfare. Against any normal enemy, it would have been devastatingly effective, but humans had never read those textbooks. The first hint that something was wrong came when Admiral Kethmar's sensors started getting confused readings. Human ships appeared on his screens, then vanished, then appeared somewhere else entirely. "What's happening to our sensors?" he demanded. "Unknown, Admiral. The human ships seem to be using some kind of stealth technology, but that's impossible. Our intelligence reports show they don't have anything advanced enough to fool our systems." What the aliens didn't know was that Dr. Han Suman had spent 3 years in Earth's underground laboratories, studying every piece of captured alien technology she could get her hands on. She had discovered something remarkable. Alien technology was incredibly advanced, but it was also incredibly predictable. Every alien sensor worked on the same basic principles. Every shield used the same energy frequencies. Every weapon targeted the same way. It was as if the entire galaxy had agreed on one way to do things and never bothered to try anything else. So Dr. Han had built something different. Instead of trying to match alien technology, she had created something that worked completely differently. Her new shield frequency made human ships nearly invisible to conventional sensors, not because it was more advanced, but because it was so primitive that alien computers couldn't recognize it. The battle began when the human fleet suddenly appeared in the middle of the alien formation. 3 human destroyers materialized out of nowhere, firing railgun salvos at point-blank range into the hegemony cruiser Dominant Will. "Impossible," Kethmar shouted. "How did they get past our sensors?" His tactical officer was frantically trying to understand what was happening. "Admiral, their ships are too small and fast for our targeting systems. They're moving in patterns that don't match any known tactical doctrine." The human ships moved like angry wasps around the massive alien vessels. They darted between the larger ships, using the aliens' own formation against them. When alien gunners tried to target human fighters, they risked hitting their own allies. Captain Park Jihu commanded the converted mining ship Tabak Mountain. His vessel had once carried ore from asteroid belts. Now it carried a crew of volunteers who had never flown in space combat before yesterday. "Target the Big One's engine section," he ordered his weapons officer. "Railgun salvo, maximum power." "Captain, we're too close. If we fire at this range, the explosion will damage us too." "That's what they think," Park replied with a grim smile. "That's why they won't expect it." The Tabak Mountain fired its entire payload of railgun slugs into the alien dreadnought's drive section. The explosion lit up space like a small star, and the human ship rode the shockwave away from its target like a surfer on a tsunami. Admiral Kethmar watched in horror as his carefully planned battle formation collapsed into chaos. Human ships appeared and disappeared like ghosts. They used suicide runs, ramming attacks, and tactics that no civilized species would consider. "Admiral," his communications officer called out, "the Dominant Will is reporting critical damage. They're requesting permission to withdraw." Withdraw? From primitive humans? Kethmar's pride wouldn't let him accept such humiliation. "All ships maintain formation. Focus fire on the largest human vessels." But the humans weren't fighting like any enemy the aliens had ever faced. When the massive alien guns targeted their capital ships, the humans simply abandoned them and swarmed to smaller, faster vessels. When the aliens adapted to target the fighters, the humans suddenly produced new ships from hidden positions. Lieutenant Kim Nari piloted a fighter that had been built in her family's garage on Mars. Her ship was tiny compared to the alien monsters around her, but it was also invisible to their sensors and faster than anything they had ever seen. "Tiger Squadron, this is Tiger Leader," she broadcast to her unit. "Form up for Attack Run Alpha. Remember, we're not trying to destroy them. We're trying to embarrass them." Her squadron of 12 fighters dove toward the alien flagship like meteors. They weaved between defensive fire that was meant for much larger targets, their small size and erratic movement making them nearly impossible to hit. When they reached the flagship, they didn't attack its weapons or engines. Instead, they targeted its communication arrays and sensor dishes. Within minutes, Admiral Kethmar found himself blind and deaf, unable to coordinate his fleet or even communicate with his own ships. But the moment that changed everything came when 3 human fighters deliberately rammed the hegemony cruiser Dominant Will. The converted cargo ships crashed into the alien vessels, Reactor core with the fury of kamikaze pilots, their crews choosing death over defeat. The explosion tore the massive alien ship apart. Debris scattered across the battlefield, and Admiral Kethmar realized he was facing something he had never encountered before, an enemy that would rather die than surrender. "Sir," his tactical officer's voice was shaking. "We've lost 6 ships. 12 more are reporting critical damage. The humans. They're not fighting to win. They're fighting to prove a point." Kethmar looked at the tactical display and felt something he had never experienced before. Doubt. His superior fleet was being torn apart by inferior ships piloted by species he had dismissed as primitive. How was it possible? "All ships," he ordered, his voice hollow. "Begin withdrawal to Rally Point Delta." But the humans weren't done with them yet. As the alien fleet tried to retreat, human ships pursued them like hunting wolves. They picked off damaged vessels, rescued enemy crews from disabled ships, and treated their prisoners with a kindness that confused and terrified their captives. Commander Velkris found himself aboard the human ship Sol Express after his cruiser was disabled. He expected torture, or at least harsh interrogation. Instead, he was given medical treatment, decent food, and a small but comfortable cell with entertainment programs and books about human culture. "Why?" he asked his human guard, a young woman named Song Minji. "Why do you treat prisoners so well?" "We came to destroy your world." Song Minji looked at him with genuine puzzlement. "Because you're a person. What else would we do?" The concept was so alien to Velkris that he couldn't understand it. In galactic warfare, prisoners were either killed, enslaved, or held for ransom. The idea of treating enemies with basic dignity simply didn't exist in military doctrine. When Admiral Kethmar's battered fleet finally reached safe space, he had lost 47 ships and taken thousands of prisoners. The humans had lost only 8 vessels, and even then they had rescued most of the crews. The report Kethmar sent to the council was filled with words he had never thought he would write. Mission failed. Human resistance more effective than anticipated. Request reinforcements and tactical reassessment. But even more disturbing was his personal log entry. The humans fight like nothing we've ever seen. They use tactics that should be impossible, show mercy when they should be ruthless, and refuse. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been in session for 3 days. Representatives from 7 major powers sat around the curved table, their faces showing various degrees of anger, fear, and confusion. The impossible had happened. A primitive species had defeated Council forces. Commander Velthos slammed his armored fist on the table. "This cannot stand. If word spreads that humans defeated our peacekeeping fleet, every minor species in the galaxy will think they can challenge Council authority." Admiral Kethmar's hologram flickered from his ship at the edge of human space. His once proud uniform was wrinkled and stained. "You don't understand what we faced out there. They don't fight like any civilized species. They use tactics that should be impossible." "Impossible tactics?" Counselor Nethys leaned forward. "Explain." Kethmar's image wavered with emotion. "They sacrifice themselves without hesitation. They show mercy to enemies who came to destroy them. They turn their own weaknesses into strengths. How do you defeat an enemy who treats your captured soldiers better than your own commanders do?" The council chamber fell silent. These were beings who had ruled the galaxy for millennia, but they had never encountered anything like humanity's approach to warfare. "It doesn't matter how they fight," declared Ambassador Korthek of the Zirak Confederacy. "What matters is that they defied Council authority. We must make an example of them that every species in the galaxy will remember." Velthos nodded agreement. "The Kryn Empire proposes a joint military action. 7 fleets, overwhelming force. We end this human problem permanently." "A pacification alliance," suggested Nethys. "Complete blockade of human space. No trade, no communication, no movement. We starve them into submission." Elder Thokvar had remained silent throughout the debate. Now he spoke, his ancient voice carrying across the chamber. "You still don't understand what you're facing. This isn't about military tactics or superior technology. This is about something fundamental in human nature." "More ancient warnings?" Velthos scoffed. "Your prophecies didn't prevent our defeat." "No," Thokvar replied sadly. "They were meant to prevent this war entirely. But you wouldn't listen then, and you won't listen now." The vote was swift and decisive. 7 major powers would form the Pacification Alliance. They would implement a total blockade of human space and prepare for systematic extermination if humanity refused to surrender. On Earth, President Nam Hyejin received the Council's ultimatum in her office. The message was simple and brutal: unconditional surrender within 30 days or face total war. Around her conference table, Earth's leaders read the demands with growing anger. They want us to disband our military, read Defense Minister Kim Woo-jin. Surrender all alien technology, accept permanent Council oversight of human government, and pay reparations for damage to Council forces. Reparations? President Nam's voice was cold with fury. They attack our colonies, enslave our people, and now they want us to pay them for the privilege? Dr. Park Seo-jun, Earth's chief scientist, looked up from his tablet. Madam President, I've been analyzing the captured alien technology. I believe we can mass-produce ships faster than they can destroy them, but only if we commit everything to the effort. President Nam stood and walked to the window overlooking New Geneva. Below, millions of humans went about their daily lives, unaware that their species stood at the edge of extinction or greatness. They want us to yield, she said quietly, to accept our place as servants and slaves. I say we show them what humans do when cornered. The transformation of human civilization happened with breathtaking speed. Every factory, every shipyard, every laboratory was converted to military production. Scientists who had spent years studying peaceful applications of alien technology now focused on building better weapons and ships. Dr. Park Seo-jun led the effort to reverse engineer captured alien systems. What he discovered would have shocked the Council if they had known. Alien technology was incredibly advanced, but it was also standardized across the entire galaxy. Every species used the same basic designs, the same operating principles, the same tactical doctrines. It's like they all went to the same engineering school, he explained to his team. They've perfected their technology over millions of years, but they've also locked themselves into thinking there's only one way to do things. His solution was elegant and terrifying. Instead of copying alien technology, Earth would create hybrid designs that combined alien knowledge with human innovation. The results would be ships that no galactic engineer thought possible. General Seo Woo-jin oversaw the military transformation. Earth's new doctrine was based on lessons learned from the first battle: mobility, unpredictability, and psychological warfare. Human forces would be organized into small, fast units that could appear anywhere in the galaxy. They expect us to defend our territory like every other species, he explained to his staff. Instead, we're going to take the war to them, hit their supply lines, capture their facilities, rescue their prisoners, show the galaxy that humans protect anyone who needs protection. The first test of Earth's new capabilities came 6 months later. Operation Thunderstorm struck 47 alien supply depots simultaneously across 8 different star systems. Human special forces, led by Colonel Jin Soo-young, moved through alien space like ghosts. The attacks were surgical and precise. Human forces disabled security systems, captured military supplies, and rescued alien workers who had been forced into slavery by their own governments. They left behind medical supplies, food, and messages in local languages. Humanity fights for freedom. Join us. The psychological impact was devastating. For the first time in galactic history, a species had shown that the great powers could be reached anywhere, anytime. Worse, the humans had treated captured aliens with kindness and dignity that most species had never experienced from their own. Leaders. Admiral Korfthek of the Pacification Alliance watched his supply networks collapse with growing panic. How are they doing this? Our intelligence shows they have maybe 300 ships. How can they be in 47 places at once? His tactical officers studied the reports with confusion. Sir, they're not following any known strategic doctrine. They attack supply depots but leave civilian facilities untouched. They capture military equipment but heal wounded enemies. They're fighting a war while following rules that don't exist in any military manual. On the captured freighter Sweet Revenge, Commander Dalthon of the Hegemony Navy found himself in a situation he couldn't understand. The humans had disabled his ship, captured his crew, and treated them all like honored guests. The human commander, Captain Lee Sangman, even visited Dalthon in his comfortable quarters. We'll be transferring you and your crew to a neutral station in 2 days, Lee explained. Your injuries will be fully healed, and you'll have transportation back to Hegemony space. Why? Dalthon asked the question that haunted him. Your species is at war with mine. Why show mercy to enemies? Captain Lee looked genuinely puzzled by the question. Because war is about defeating your enemy's will to fight, not about causing unnecessary suffering. We want the galaxy to see that humans can be better than their current leaders. The concept was so alien to Dalthon that he spent hours trying to understand it. In galactic warfare, prisoners were bargaining chips or slave labor. The idea of healing enemies and setting them free was unthinkable. But the most shocking moment came when Dalthon was indeed released at a neutral station. The humans had repaired his ship, restocked his supplies, and even upgraded his medical bay with human technology that was superior to anything the hegemony produced. "Tell your commanders," Captain Lee said as Dalthon prepared to leave, "that humans are willing to end this war anytime they're ready to talk as equals instead of masters." The message Dalthon carried back to Alliance Command was more dangerous than any weapon. Within weeks, reports began filtering in from across the galaxy. Alien soldiers were questioning why they were fighting humans who showed more concern for alien welfare than their own governments did. Elder Thokvar addressed an emergency council session as the crisis deepened. "You created this war because you couldn't accept that humans refused to submit. Now you're losing it because you still don't understand what you're fighting." "What are we fighting then?" demanded Velthos. "If it's not about military superiority or technological advancement, what is it?" Thokvar's ancient eyes looked around the chamber at beings who had ruled the galaxy for so long they had forgotten what it meant to serve others. "You're fighting an idea. The idea that strength comes from protecting others, not dominating them. The idea that mercy is not weakness, but the greatest strength of all. Philosophical nonsense." Velthos stood up, his armor clanking. "We are the rightful rulers of this galaxy. We have the strongest fleets, the most advanced technology, the longest civilizations. How can primitives threaten that?" "Because," Thokvar said quietly, "they're showing the galaxy what leadership really looks like, and your subjects are starting to notice the difference." The proof came in the form of rebellion. On 16 different worlds, oppressed species rose up against their council-backed governments. They used human tactics, human technology, and human mercy protocols. Most shocking of all, they won. Admiral Korfthek stood before the Alliance's Emergen. The largest armada in galactic history approached Earth's solar system like a cloud of metal death. 2,000 ships from 7 different civilizations moved in perfect formation, their combined firepower capable of cracking planets and boiling oceans. Admiral Korfthek stood on the bridge of the Alliance flagship Inevitable Victory, watching his tactical displays with grim satisfaction. This time there would be no mistakes, no surprises, no mercy. The human problem would be solved permanently. "All fleet commanders report status," he ordered. "Kryn Empire Battle Group ready," came Velthos's voice. 400 ships, full weapons load. "Hegemony Strike Force ready," reported Admiral Kethmar. 300 ships with Planet Cracker ordnance. One by one, the commanders of the Pacification Alliance reported their readiness. The most powerful military force ever assembled was preparing to eliminate a species that had committed the ultimate crime, refusing to surrender. On Earth, Admiral Yang Tehun stood in the command center of the Human Defense Fleet. Around him, displays showed the approaching alien armada in all its terrible glory. 400 human ships waited in Earth's orbit, many still bearing scorch marks from previous battles. The odds were 5-1 against humanity. By any rational calculation, Earth's fleet should have been fleeing to the outer colonies or negotiating surrender terms. Instead, they held their positions with the calm determination that had shocked the galaxy for the past year. "Admiral," called Communications Officer Bai Jinwan, "the alien fleet is broadcasting surrender demands." "Let's hear them," Yang replied. Admiral Korfthek's voice echoed across the command center. "Humans of Earth, you are surrounded and outnumbered. Surrender immediately and accept Council authority, or we will glass your homeworld and hunt down every human in the galaxy. You have 1 hour to respond." Yang looked around at his staff. These were men and women who had volunteered to defend their homeworld against impossible odds. Not one of them looked afraid. They looked determined, angry, and ready to show the galaxy what humans did when cornered. "Open a channel to all frequencies," Yang ordered. "I want every ship in both fleets to hear this." When the channel opened, Yang's voice carried to every human and alien vessel in the solar system. "Admiral Korfthek, you came to our home expecting us to surrender. You never understood. We don't know how." "You have 1 hour," Korfthek repeated coldly. "We don't need an hour," Yang replied. Our answer is no. If you want our world, you'll have to take it from us. But know this, we're not the same species you tried to break a year ago. We've learned a few things about galactic warfare. The human fleet began to move, but not in any pattern the aliens recognized. Instead of forming defensive lines or attempting to escape, they scattered in all directions like seeds in the wind. What are they doing? Demanded Velthos from his command ship. Are they retreating? No, sir, his tactical officer replied with confusion. I don't know what they're doing. They're moving to random positions throughout the system. Admiral Korvathek watched the human fleet disperse with growing unease. He had expected either desperate defense or panicked flight. This organized scattering made no tactical sense. All ships begin primary bombardment of Earth. Ignore the scattered ships. We'll hunt them down after we destroy their homeworld. But as the alien fleet moved toward Earth, Dr. Han Suman activated humanity's final surprise. The quantum tunneling network she had built over the past year came online, creating invisible pathways throughout the solar system. Suddenly, human ships began appearing out of nowhere. The destroyer Soul Light materialized inside the alien formation. The cruiser Docto Pride emerged from behind Jupiter. The fighter squadrons led by Commander Kim Nari popped into existence directly behind the alien flagship. Impossible, Korvathek shouted as his sensors tried to make sense of what was happening. Ships cannot just appear and disappear. But that was exactly what they were doing. The human fleet was using the solar system itself as a weapon, appearing anywhere instantly through quantum tunnels that connected every major gravitational body from Mercury to Pluto. Captain Lim Yunji commanded the converted freighter New Incheon. Her ship had been a cargo hauler 6 months ago. Now it carried the most advanced quantum tunneling drive in human space, allowing it to appear anywhere in the system without warning. Target the Big One's communication array, she ordered her weapons officer. Let's make their admiral as blind as we were when this started. The New Incheon emerged from a quantum tunnel directly above the alien flagship, fired a full spread of railgun rounds into its communication systems, and vanished again before the alien gunners could react. Across the battlefield, human ships used their impossible mobility to attack and fade like ghosts. They appeared, struck critical systems, and disappeared before the aliens could coordinate a response. But the most devastating aspect of the battle wasn't the quantum tunneling technology. It was the humans' continued adherence to their incomprehensible code of warfare. Every alien ship they disabled, they boarded. Every alien crew they captured, they treated with medical care and dignity. Lieutenant Bei Jinhuan found himself aboard a disabled Kryn destroyer, tending to wounded alien soldiers who had expected death or torture. Instead, human medics were healing their injuries and human engineers were repairing their life support. Why? Asked the Kryn commander. The same question that haunted every alien who encountered human mercy. You could have destroyed us. Why show kindness to enemies? Because we're not fighting you, Bei replied, adjusting the alien's medical bandages. We're fighting the system that sent you here to die for no good reason. The psychological impact was more devastating than any weapon. Alien crew members who had been prepared to die, gloriously for the Alliance, found themselves rescued by enemies who treated them better than their own officers. Did Admiral Korvathek watched his carefully, planned assault collapse into chaos as human ships appeared and disappeared like supernatural beings. Worse, his own crews were beginning to question why they were fighting an enemy that showed such consistent mercy. Sir, his communications officer called out urgently. We're receiving surrender requests from our own ships. What? The captured crews are asking to join the humans. They say they've been treated better in the past hour than in their entire military careers. The turning point came when 3 Alliance dreadnoughts found themselves surrounded by human fighters that had appeared from quantum tunnels. The alien captains prepared for glorious death, but instead received a communication from Admiral Yang. Alliance vessels, you are surrounded but not destroyed. Your weapons are disabled but your life support is intact. We offer you the chance to withdraw with honor. Your crews will be returned unharmed to neutral space. Admiral Vexthon of the Hegemony Dreadnought Inevitable Conquest couldn't understand what he was hearing. You're offering us terms? We came here to destroy your species. That was your choice, Yang replied calmly. This is ours. We don't fight to destroy our enemies. We fight to defeat the ideas that make them enemies in the first place. The concept was so alien to galactic military thinking that it took Vexthon several minutes to process. An enemy offering mercy to attackers who had come to commit genocide was unprecedented in galactic history. But even more shocking was what Yang said next. "Admiral, we've been monitoring your ship's life support. Your environmental systems are failing. We're sending repair teams to fix them before your crew suffocates. You would save the lives of enemies who came to destroy you? We would save the lives of people who were sent to die by leaders who don't value them," Yang corrected. "The question is, do you still want to die for those leaders, or would you prefer to live and see what the galaxy could become?" Across the battlefield, the Alliance fleet was coming apart not from military defeat, but from moral confusion. Alien crews who had expected death found themselves rescued. Alien officers who had expected glory found themselves questioning orders that sent them to commit genocide against people who responded with mercy. Admiral Korvtek realized his Grand Armada was disintegrating. Ships were surrendering, crews were defecting, and his own officers were asking why they were fighting an enemy that treated them with more dignity than their own command structure. "All ships," he broadcast desperately, "remember your duty to the Alliance. These humans are the enemy." But his words rang hollow against the reality his crews were experiencing. Commander Dalthon, who had been captured and released by humans months earlier, finally spoke up from his position on the Alliance command staff. "Admiral, with respect, what have the humans done to us that's worse than what our own leaders have done? They've never enslaved us, never sent us to die for their profit, never treated us as expendable resources." The bridge fell silent as Korvtek realized the terrible truth. The humans hadn't defeated the Alliance with superior weapons or tactics. They had defeated them by showing the galaxy what leadership looked like when it was based on service rather than domination. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "Admiral Yang is requesting permission to speak with you directly." Korvtek nodded numbly. When Yang's image appeared on his screen, the human admiral looked tired but not triumphant. He looked like someone who had won a war he never wanted to fight.